December 19, 1777. 12,000 men stumbled into a frozen Pennsylvania field. They left bloody footprints in the snow. Within months, half of them would be dead. This is the winter that almost killed America before it was born. George Washington watched his army die. Not from British bullets. From cold. From hunger. From disease. The Revolutionary War wasn't being lost on battlefields. It was being lost in the snow. Valley Forge wasn't supposed to be their graveyard. It was supposed to be their winter camp. A place to rest. A place to regroup. Instead, it became hell on earth. The soldiers arrived in tatters. Their uniforms hung in rags. Some had no shoes. They wrapped their feet in cloth. The cloth soaked through with blood. You could track the army by following the red trail in the snow. One officer wrote in his diary, "I am sick, discontented, and out of humor. Poor food. Hard lodging. Cold weather. Fatigue. Nasty clothes. Nasty cookery. The devil is in it." That was the good days. Washington chose Valley Forge for strategic reasons. It was close enough to Philadelphia to watch the British. Far enough to be safe. High ground. Defensible. On paper, it made sense. In reality, it was a death sentence. The Continental Congress had abandoned them. They fled Philadelphia when the British came. They set up in York, Pennsylvania. 70 miles away. They argued about politics. They argued about money. Meanwhile, soldiers froze to death. Congress couldn't pay the troops. The Continental dollar was worthless. Farmers wouldn't sell food for worthless paper. They sold to the British instead. The British paid in gold. Gold doesn't lose value. Gold feeds families. So Washington's men starved. While British soldiers in Philadelphia ate well. While they slept in warm beds. While they danced at parties. The contrast was cruel. The first priority was shelter. The men needed huts. Wooden huts. 16 feet by 14 feet. Each hut would hold 12 men. They needed hundreds of these huts. And they needed them fast. But they had no tools. No nails. No proper equipment. They cut down trees with whatever they could find. Dull axes. Broken saws. Their bare hands. The work was brutal. The cold made it worse. Washington offered a prize. $12 to the squad that built their hut first. $12 was a fortune. Men worked through the night. Through the bitter cold. Through their exhaustion. It took weeks. Weeks of sleeping in tents. Tents that barely blocked the wind. Men huddled together for warmth. Some never woke up. They froze in their sleep. One soldier described it. "We were absolutely literally starved. I saw several of the men roast their old shoes and eat them. They ate shoe leather. They ate tree bark. They boiled their belts. Anything to fill their stomachs. Anything to survive one more day." Disease spread like wildfire. Typhus. Typhoid. Pneumonia. Dysentery. Smallpox. The camp became a pestilence. 2,000 men reported sick every day. The hospital huts overflowed. Men lay dying in the mud. Doctors had no medicine. No bandages. No equipment. They watched men die. One after another. Helpless. Frustrated. Broken. Dr. Albigence Waldo kept a journal. "I am sick, discontented, and out of humor. Poor food. Hard lodging. Cold weather. Fatigue. Nasty clothes. Nasty cookery. Vomit half my time. Smoked out of my senses. The devil is in it. I can't endure it. And he was a doctor. Imagine being a regular soldier. Washington walked among them. Every day. He saw their suffering. He felt their pain. He shared what little he had. He ate the same rations. He slept in the same cold. Leadership meant suffering together. But seeing wasn't fixing. Washington needed supplies. He needed food. He needed clothes. He needed medicine. He wrote letter after letter to Congress. Begging. Pleading. Demanding. Congress did nothing. They were too busy arguing. Too busy playing politics. Too busy protecting their own interests. The army didn't matter to them. Not really. Washington wrote to Congress in desperation. Unless some great and capital change suddenly takes place, this army must inevitably be reduced to one or other of these three things: starve, dissolve, or disperse. 3 options. All bad. Starvation. Dissolution. Desertion. The American Revolution was dying in the snow. Men deserted daily. They couldn't take it anymore. They left in the night. They walked away from the cause. From their brothers. From their country. Can you blame them? Some went home to their families. Some joined the British. The British offered food. Warmth. Pay. Real pay. It was tempting. So tempting. Washington couldn't execute them all. There were too many. He tried to set examples. Public punishments. Floggings. Hangings. But desperation beats discipline. Men kept leaving. Martha Washington arrived in February. She came to be with her husband. She didn't have to. She chose to. She saw the suffering. She organized relief efforts. She rallied the other officers' wives. They made clothes. They nursed the sick. They brought humanity to hell. Her presence changed something. If the general's wife could endure Valley Forge, so could they. It was symbolic. But symbols matter. Especially when you have nothing else. The soldiers called themselves the Continental Army. But they weren't really an army. Not yet. They were farmers. Merchants. Laborers. They knew how to shoot. Barely. They didn't know how to fight. Not as a unit. Not as professionals. They lost most of their battles. They survived through luck. Through British mistakes. Through sheer stubborn will. But that wasn't enough. They needed to become real soldiers. Then Baron von Steuben arrived. February 23, 1778. He changed everything. Von Steuben was Prussian. German. He'd served in the army of Frederick the Great. The best army in Europe. He knew discipline. He knew drill. He knew war. And he didn't speak English. He cursed in German and French. His translator, a young officer, refused to translate the profanity. So von Steuben learned English curse words. He used them liberally. The men loved it. A foreign nobleman screaming American profanity at them. It was hilarious. It was effective. Von Steuben started with the basics. How to stand. How to march. How to load a musket. How to fire. How to reload. How to do it fast. How to do it under pressure. How to do it while men died around you. He picked 100 men. The best they had. He trained them personally. Every day. 4 hours. In the snow. In the cold. He worked them until they moved as one. Until they thought as one. Until they became soldiers. Then those 100 trained others. And those trained more. Like a pyramid. The entire army transformed. Slowly. Painfully. But surely. Von Steuben wrote a manual. Regulations for the order and discipline of the troops of the United States. It became the Bible of the Continental Army. Every officer had a copy. Every soldier learned from it. He simplified European tactics. Made them work for Americans. Europeans had professional armies. Years of training. Americans didn't have years. They had months. Sometimes weeks. Von Steuben adapted. He innovated. He made it work. The drill became meditation. The same movements. Over and over. Muscle memory. They stopped thinking. They just moved. Together. As one. That's what makes an army. Not individual courage. Collective action. Meanwhile, Washington dealt with conspiracy. Some officers wanted him removed. They thought he was incompetent. They thought someone else could do better. The Conway Cabal. Named after General Thomas Conway. One of the conspirators. They whispered behind his back. They wrote letters. They plotted. They wanted General Horatio Gates to replace Washington. Gates had won at Saratoga. Washington had lost. Repeatedly. The logic seemed sound. But the conspiracy fell apart. Washington had loyalists. Officers who believed in him. Soldiers who would follow him into hell. They already had. The plotters backed down. Washington survived. Stronger than before. The winter dragged on. January. February. March. Each day the same. Cold. Hunger. Disease. Death. Men wondered if they'd ever leave. If they'd ever see spring. If they'd ever go home. But something was changing. Slowly. Imperceptibly at first. The army was hardening. Not their bodies. Those were breaking down. Their spirits. Their resolve. Their brotherhood. They suffered together. That creates bonds. Unbreakable bonds. The man next to you kept you alive. You kept him alive. That's family. Deeper than blood. Forged in fire and ice. Stories spread through the camp. Tales of endurance. Of sacrifice. Of courage. Not battlefield courage. Survival courage. The courage to wake up each day. To face another day of hell. To not give up. One story became legend. A sentry was found frozen at his post. Standing. Musket in hand. Dead. But he never abandoned his duty. Even death couldn't move him. Men wept hearing it. Then they stood straighter. They endured harder. If he could do that, they could survive another day. Washington prayed. Soldiers saw him. Alone. On his knees. In the snow. Praying for his men. Praying for victory. Praying for hope. It moved them. Their general believed. So could they. The Quakers in the area helped. Some of them. Not all. Quakers are pacifists. They didn't support war. But they supported suffering. They brought food. Blankets. Medicine. Not enough. Never enough. But something. Something was better than nothing. Local women came. They sewed. They cooked. They nursed. They didn't have much. They gave what they could. Humanity in the darkness. Kindness in the cold. February turned to March. The worst seemed over. Not because things got better. Because they couldn't get worse. And because the men had adapted. They learned to survive. To endure. To persist. Then news arrived. March 7, 1778. France was joining the war. As America's ally. They'd signed a treaty. They'd recognized American independence. They were sending ships. Troops. Supplies. Money. The camp exploded. Joy. Relief. Hope. Real hope. They weren't alone anymore. The world's second greatest power was on their side. Britain couldn't win now. They couldn't. The mathematics changed. Von Steuben increased training. They weren't just surviving now. They were preparing. For battle. For victory. The drills intensified. The discipline tightened. They became an army. A real army. Spring arrived. Slowly. The snow melted. Mud replaced ice. But mud was better than snow. Warmer. Plants grew. Green returned. Life returned. Supplies started arriving. Food. Real food. Uniforms. Weapons. The difference was miraculous. Men gained weight. Color returned to their faces. They smiled. They laughed. They remembered what it felt like to be human. To be alive. To have hope. Washington planned. The British occupied Philadelphia. They'd have to move. Eventually. When they did, he'd be ready. His army would be ready. Valley Forge had forged them. Made them harder. Stronger. Deadlier. The training continued. Every day. They practiced maneuvers. Formations. Tactics. They became precise. Professional. Disciplined. Von Steuben's influence showed. This wasn't the mob that stumbled into Valley Forge. This was an army. May came. Warm. Beautiful. The army held a celebration. For the French alliance. A day of parade. Of ceremony. Of recognition. They marched in formation. Perfect formation. Muskets gleaming. Uniforms fresh. Washington watched with pride. This was his army. They'd survived. Together. They were ready. For whatever came next. June 19, 1778. 6 months after arriving. The Continental Army marched out of Valley Forge. 12,000 had entered. 10,000 left. 2,000 graves remained behind. 2,000 who gave everything. Who never saw victory. Who never went home. But those 10,000. They were different. They weren't the desperate mob of December. They were soldiers. Professional soldiers. They'd survived Valley Forge. They could survive anything. 10 days later, they proved it. Battle of Monmouth. June 28, 1778. Scorching heat. The opposite of Valley Forge. They fought the British to a standstill. Held their ground. Executed complex maneuvers under fire. Von Steuben's training worked. They'd become the army Washington needed. The war continued. For 5 more years. Victories and defeats. Advances and retreats. But Valley Forge remained the turning point. The moment the revolution could have died. Could have ended. But didn't. Why? Why did they endure? Why didn't they quit? Why didn't they go home? Some stayed for Washington. They believed in him. Trusted him. Would follow him anywhere. Even into hell. Especially into hell. Because he went first. Some stayed for each other. For their brothers. The men beside them. You don't abandon family. Even when family is suffering. Especially when family is suffering. Some stayed for the cause. For independence. For liberty. For the idea that men could govern themselves. That kings weren't necessary. That freedom was worth dying for. Worth suffering for. Most stayed for all three. Washington. Brotherhood. Cause. Intertwined. Inseparable. Powerful enough to overcome cold. Hunger. Disease. Death. Valley Forge became legend. The winter that tested America. The winter that almost killed the revolution. But didn't. Because ordinary men did extraordinary things. Not in moments. In months. Day after day. Night after night. They didn't fight battles at Valley Forge. They fought winter. They fought starvation. They fought despair. And they won. Not through glory. Through endurance. Through persistence. Through refusal to quit. That's what Valley Forge teaches. Victory isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just surviving. Just waking up. Just lasting one more day. Then another. Then another. Until suddenly, you've won. The 2,000 who died at Valley Forge never fired another shot. Never fought another battle. But they're as important as any battlefield hero. They held the line. They kept the army together. They gave their lives so others could continue. Washington never forgot Valley Forge. Years later. President Washington. He'd remember that winter. The suffering. The sacrifice. The endurance. It shaped him. Shaped his presidency. Shaped the nation. The soldiers never forgot. They told their children. Their grandchildren. Stories of the cold. The hunger. The brotherhood. The survival. Those stories became American mythology. The forge that created America. Because that's what Valley Forge was. A forge. Fire and hammer. Breaking down. Building up. Transforming raw material into something stronger. Into something unbreakable. The Continental Army entered Valley Forge as rebels. Farmers with muskets. Undisciplined. Untrained. Desperate. They left as soldiers. Professional. Disciplined. Dangerous. Ready to fight. Ready to win. The British Army in Philadelphia spent the winter in comfort. Warm houses. Full bellies. Parties and dancing. They emerged weaker. Softer. Complacent. They'd lost their edge. The Continental Army spent the winter in hell. Cold. Hungry. Dying. They emerged stronger. Harder. Sharper. They'd gained an edge. The edge of men who've survived the worst. Who have nothing left to fear. That made all the difference. In the battles to come. In the war ahead. In the nation being born. Valley Forge made it possible. Made it real. Every great nation has a founding myth. A story of trial and triumph. Of suffering and survival. For America, Valley Forge is that myth. But it's not mythology. It happened. Real men. Real suffering. Real survival. 12,000 men stumbled into a frozen field in December 1777. By June 1778, 10,000 soldiers marched out. Those missing 2,000. They're still there. In the ground at Valley Forge. Waiting. Watching. Reminding us. Freedom costs. Liberty demands sacrifice. Independence requires endurance. Not just in moments of glory. In long nights of suffering. In endless days of pain. In winters that seem like they'll never end. But they do end. Winter becomes spring. Suffering becomes strength. Endurance becomes victory. That's the lesson of Valley Forge. That's why it matters. That's why we remember. The winter that almost ended America. Instead, it made America. In the cold. In the hunger. In the suffering. In the survival. That's where the United States was truly born. Not in Philadelphia. Not at Yorktown. At Valley Forge. In the snow. In the blood. In the footprints of men who refused to quit. Who endured when endurance seemed impossible. Who survived when survival seemed unlikely. Who became soldiers when they were just men. Who became brothers when they were just strangers. Who became Americans when they were just rebels. Valley Forge. The winter that tested everything. And found that everything was enough. Barely. Just barely. But enough. That's all victory ever requires. Just enough. Just barely. Just one more day. Then another. Then another. Until suddenly, you've won. The bloody footprints in the snow. They tell the story. Of men who walked through hell. Who left pieces of themselves behind. But kept walking. Kept fighting. Kept surviving. Until they didn't have to anymore. Until spring came. Until help arrived. Until they became the army that won a revolution. That created a nation. That changed the world. December 19, 1777. 12,000 men stumbled into a frozen Pennsylvania field. By June 19, 1778, 10,000 soldiers marched out. That's Valley Forge. That's America. Born in the cold. Forged in the fire. Tempered by suffering. Unbreakable because it once was broken. Strong because it survived weakness. Victorious because it endured defeat. Free because it paid the price. That's the winter that almost ended America. The winter that made America. Valley Forge. Walk through Valley Forge today. You'll see monuments. Plaques. Reconstructed huts. Clean paths. Peaceful fields. It's beautiful. Serene. Nothing like that winter. Nothing like the hell those men endured. But close your eyes. Imagine. December wind cutting through thin clothing. Stomachs empty for days. Feet wrapped in bloody rags. Brothers dying in crude shelters. The smell of disease. The sound of coughing. The sight of men giving up. That was Valley Forge. Tour guides tell sanitized stories. Numbers. Dates. Facts. 2,000 dead. 6 months. 12,000 troops. But numbers don't capture it. Can't capture it. You need to feel it. The desperation. The fear. The doubt. Did they think they'd win? In those darkest moments. When men died daily. When supplies never came. When Congress forgot them. When the cold seemed endless. Did they believe? Some did. Some didn't. Most didn't know. They just kept going. One foot forward. Then another. Not because they believed in victory. Because they believed in each other. Because quitting meant betraying the man beside them. The man who shared his blanket. Who gave his last bite of food. Who sat up with you when fever took hold. That's what held the army together. Not patriotism. Not ideology. Not even Washington. Brotherhood. Simple. Powerful. Unbreakable brotherhood. Forged in shared suffering. Tempered by collective survival. Modern soldiers understand. Combat creates bonds civilian life never can. Shared danger. Shared hardship. Shared trauma. It changes you. Connects you. To men you barely knew. Who become closer than family. Closer than blood. Valley Forge wasn't combat. It was worse. Combat is intense. Brief. Terrifying. Then over. Valley Forge was endless. Day after day. Week after week. Month after month. No relief. No escape. Just survival. Just endurance. Just another day of hell. The psychological toll was devastating. Depression swept the camp. Men lost hope. Lost will. Lost themselves. Some just stopped. Stopped eating. Stopped moving. Stopped caring. They died not from disease. From giving up. The spirit died first. The body followed. But others found strength. In religion. In duty. In rage. In stubborn refusal to let the British win. In love for families back home. In dreams of farms they'd return to. In promises they'd made. To themselves. To their brothers. To their country. Washington saw all of it. He carried the weight. Every death. Every deserter. Every failure. He blamed himself. Should have prepared better. Should have fought harder for supplies. Should have chosen a different location. The guilt ate at him. But he never showed it. Not to his men. He remained strong. Confident. Resolute. Because they needed him to be. Because leadership means bearing weight others can't. Because that's what commanders do. They suffer so others can hope. Martha understood. She saw the toll. The sleepless nights. The gray hair spreading. The weight loss. The worry lines deepening. She couldn't fix it. Couldn't make it better. But she could be there. Sometimes presence is enough. Sometimes it's everything. The officers struggled too. They were better supplied than enlisted men. But not much better. They watched their soldiers suffer. Felt helpless. Frustrated. Angry. Some resigned. Went home. Couldn't handle the guilt. The responsibility. The powerlessness. Others stayed. Shared what they had. Gave up rations. Gave up clothing. Gave up warmth. Led by example. Suffered alongside. That's leadership. Not giving orders. Sharing burdens. Bleeding together. Young officers learned lessons they'd never forget. About sacrifice. About duty. About the cost of command. Alexander Hamilton was there. 23 years old. Washington's aide. He saw everything. Learned everything. It shaped his vision for America. Strong central government. Professional army. Federal power to support troops. Valley Forge taught him those lessons. Lafayette was there. French volunteer. 19 years old. Wealthy. Aristocratic. He could have stayed in his warm quarters. Instead, he walked among the men. Shared their suffering. Bought supplies with his own money. He didn't have to. He chose to. The soldiers loved him for it. These young men became founders. Leaders. Statesmen. Valley Forge shaped them. Taught them. Hardened them. Showed them what America would cost. What it would demand. What it would require. They never forgot. The enlisted men were mostly forgotten. History remembers generals. Presidents. Founders. But not Private John Nobody. Who froze to death on sentry duty. Who gave his shoes to a friend. Who died of typhoid at 22. Who never saw his family again. Who never knew if independence was won. Who never knew his sacrifice mattered. But it did matter. Every single one mattered. Every death. Every day of suffering. Every moment of endurance. Without them, there's no America. No Constitution. No Bill of Rights. No freedom. Just another failed rebellion. Another footnote in British history. They were farmers. Blacksmiths. Merchants. Boys. Old men. Rich. Poor. North. South. Different colonies. Different backgrounds. Different reasons for fighting. Valley Forge made them the same. Made them one. Made them Americans. Before Valley Forge, they were Virginians. New Yorkers. Massachusetts men. After Valley Forge, they were Continental soldiers. Americans. The identity forged there. In the suffering. In the survival. In the brotherhood that transcended colony. Transcended class. Transcended everything except shared humanity. That's Valley Forge's greatest legacy. Not military training. Not strategic victory. Not even survival. Unity. The creation of American identity. E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. That happened at Valley Forge. In the cold. In the darkness. In the desperate clinging to each other and to hope. The British never understood. They saw rabble. Amateurs. Farmers playing soldier. They underestimated. Dismissed. Mocked. They didn't see what Valley Forge created. Didn't understand transformation. Didn't recognize the danger until too late. After Valley Forge, the Continental Army won battles. Not all of them. But enough. They fought smart. Fought hard. Fought together. The British couldn't break them. Because Valley Forge already broke them. And they survived. They rebuilt. They became unbreakable. Yorktown. October 1781. The final major battle. Continental Army. French allies. British surrender. America wins independence. That victory started at Valley Forge. 3.5 years earlier. In the snow. In the suffering. In the refusal to quit. The soldiers who survived Valley Forge. Who marched out in June 1778. They knew. They'd already won. Not the war. Something more important. They'd won over themselves. Over despair. Over death. Everything else was just details. Just time. Just waiting for Britain to realize what they already knew. America would be free. Had to be free. Because men at Valley Forge paid the price. Earned the right. Refused any other outcome. Think about endurance. Real endurance. Not running a marathon. Not climbing a mountain. Surviving winter. Surviving hunger. Surviving disease. Surviving hopelessness. Day after day. Week after week. Month after month. No end in sight. No relief coming. No guarantee of survival. No guarantee of victory. Just today. Just now. Just this moment. Then the next. Then the next. That's what Valley Forge demanded. That's what those men gave. Not one heroic moment. Thousands of small moments. Waking up when you want to die. Standing when you want to fall. Fighting when you want to surrender. Staying when you want to leave. Living when dying seems easier. Modern America doesn't understand. We're soft. Comfortable. Climate controlled. Well fed. Safe. We complain about Wi-Fi. About traffic. About cold coffee. We don't know hardship. Not real hardship. Not Valley Forge hardship. But we benefit from it. Every day. Every freedom. Every right. Every opportunity. Paid for by men who ate shoe leather. Who slept in snow. Who died of disease. Who never gave up. Never surrendered. Never stopped believing. Or at least never stopped fighting. Even when belief failed. That's the real miracle of Valley Forge. Not that they believed. That they fought anyway. Even in doubt. Even in despair. Even in agony. They fought. They endured. They survived. Belief is easy. Action without belief. That's heroism. That's sacrifice. That's Valley Forge. Visit Valley Forge today. Walk the fields. See the monuments. Read the plaques. But understand. You're walking on sacred ground. Hallowed by sacrifice. Consecrated by suffering. Made holy by men who gave everything. Who died for an idea. For freedom. For America. Their graves are there. 2,000 of them. Most unmarked. Most forgotten. Most unknown. But not unimportant. Never unimportant. Each one mattered. Each one gave everything. Each one made America possible. Stand silent. Remember them. Thank them. Honor them. Not with words. With lives worthy of their sacrifice. With freedom used wisely. With democracy protected fiercely. With rights defended constantly. That's how we honor Valley Forge. By being worthy of it. By never forgetting. By never taking freedom for granted. December 19, 1777 to June 19, 1778. 6 months. 26 weeks. 182 days. Each one an eternity. Each one a battle. Each one a victory. Because they survived it. Because they endured it. Because they refused to let it break them. That's Valley Forge. That's America. That's freedom. Bought with blood. Paid with suffering. Earned through endurance. The winter that almost ended America. The winter that made America. Forever. The legacy lives on. Every American soldier who's ever served. Every veteran who's ever sacrificed. Every warrior who's ever endured. They're connected to Valley Forge. Through tradition. Through spirit. Through the unbreakable chain of service. Valley Forge set the standard. Established the precedent. Showed what American soldiers could endure. Would endure. Must endure. West Point. The military academy. Founded in 1802. But its spirit born at Valley Forge. Where officers learned that leadership means sacrifice. That command means service. That power means responsibility. Every cadet learns Valley Forge. Studies it. Understands it. carries it forward. The Continental Army became the United States Army. Same lineage. Same tradition. Same values. Duty. Honor. Country. Those words mean something. They cost something. Valley Forge proved it. Demonstrated it. Embodied it. Modern soldiers train in comfort. Compared to Valley Forge. They have food. Shelter. Medicine. Equipment. But they understand the principle. The core truth. That winning requires suffering. Victory demands sacrifice. Freedom costs blood. Valley Forge taught that lesson. Forever. Afghanistan. Iraq. Vietnam. Korea. World War II. World War I. Every American conflict. Every battle. Every war. Valley Forge echoes through them. The spirit. The determination. The refusal to quit. That's Valley Forge's gift. Its eternal contribution. Its undying legacy. Critics say we romanticize suffering. That we glorify hardship. That Valley Forge shouldn't be celebrated. Too much death. Too much pain. Too much waste. They miss the point. Entirely. Valley Forge isn't celebrated because of suffering. It's celebrated despite suffering. Because men endured when endurance seemed impossible. Because they survived when survival seemed unlikely. Because they won when winning seemed unthinkable. That's worth celebrating. That's worth remembering. That's worth honoring. War is terrible. Always. Valley Forge was terrible. Horribly terrible. But avoiding war. Preventing tyranny. Securing freedom. Those required Valley Forge. Required suffering. Required sacrifice. We don't celebrate the suffering. We honor the sacrifice. We remember the cost. We appreciate the result. Freedom isn't free. The cliché is true. Profoundly true. Valley Forge proves it. Demonstrates it. Embodies it. 2,000 men paid the ultimate price. 10,000 more paid in suffering. In trauma. In scars physical and mental. So we could be free. So America could exist. So democracy could flourish. We owe them. All of them. The dead. The survivors. The ones who suffered. The ones who endured. The ones who never quit. We owe them lives worthy of their sacrifice. Nation worthy of their suffering. Freedom worthy of their cost. Are we worthy? That's the question Valley Forge asks. Every generation must answer. Through actions. Through choices. Through commitment to the values they died for. To the principles they suffered for. To the freedom they earned for us. Democracy requires participation. Freedom demands vigilance. Rights need protection. Constantly. Always. Forever. That's our Valley Forge. Not suffering in snow. But engaging in democracy. Defending freedom. Protecting rights. For ourselves. For others. For future generations. The soldiers at Valley Forge didn't know if they'd win. Didn't know if America would survive. Didn't know if their sacrifice would matter. They fought anyway. Suffered anyway. Endured anyway. That's faith. That's courage. That's heroism. We know how it ended. We know America survived. We know they won. We know their sacrifice mattered. But they didn't. They acted in uncertainty. In doubt. In fear. That makes their choice more powerful. More meaningful. More inspiring. Choose to fight when victory is certain. That's calculation. Choose to fight when victory is uncertain. That's courage. Valley Forge was courage. Pure. Undiluted. Unshakable courage. Not the absence of fear. Action despite fear. Persistence despite doubt. Endurance despite agony. That's what makes Valley Forge eternal. Relevant. Powerful. Not the historical details. The human truth. That ordinary people can do extraordinary things. That suffering can be endured. That darkness can be overcome. That winter always gives way to spring. Eventually. Stand at Valley Forge today. Feel the wind. Imagine the cold multiplied by 100. Imagine hunger gnawing at your belly. Imagine watching friends die. Imagine wanting to quit. To leave. To surrender. Then imagine choosing to stay. To fight. To endure. That's Valley Forge. That's America. That's why it matters. Every great achievement requires sacrifice. Building businesses. Raising families. Creating art. Pursuing dreams. Nothing worth doing is easy. Valley Forge reminds us. Teaches us. Inspires us. If they could endure that winter, we can endure our challenges. Our struggles. Our winters. Your Valley Forge might not be literal winter. Might be career setback. Relationship struggle. Health crisis. Financial disaster. Personal tragedy. Everyone faces their Valley Forge. Their testing. Their trial. Their winter. Valley Forge teaches how to respond. Don't quit. Don't surrender. Don't give up. Endure. Persist. Survive. One day at a time. One moment at a time. One heartbeat at a time. Until spring comes. Until relief arrives. Until you emerge stronger. Harder. Better. That's the ultimate lesson. The eternal truth. The timeless wisdom. Suffering is temporary. Character is permanent. Valley Forge suffered for 6 months. America has lasted 250 years. The proportion matters. The perspective matters. The outcome matters. Short-term pain. Long-term gain. Valley Forge exemplifies it. Proves it. Demonstrates it. 6 months of hell bought centuries of freedom. 2,000 deaths created millions of lives. Temporary sacrifice produced permanent results. That's the mathematics of meaning. The calculus of consequence. The arithmetic of achievement. December 19, 1777. The Continental Army entered Valley Forge. Broken. Defeated. Desperate. They were losing the war. Losing hope. Losing faith. The revolution was dying. America was ending. Freedom was failing. June 19, 1778. The Continental Army left Valley Forge. Transformed. Professional. Dangerous. They were ready to win. Ready to fight. Ready to prevail. The revolution was reborn. America was emerging. Freedom was rising. What happened in between? Suffering. Sacrifice. Endurance. Death. Determination. Brotherhood. Leadership. Training. Faith. Hope. Love. All of it. Mixed together. Forged in cold. Tempered by hunger. Hardened by disease. Perfected by persistence. That's alchemy. Transforming base metal into gold. Transforming defeat into victory. Transforming boys into men. Transforming colonists into Americans. Transforming rabble into army. Valley Forge was alchemy. The forge. The fire. The transformation. Washington was the smith. Von Steuben the hammer. Winter the forge. Men the metal. And America? America was the blade. Forged at Valley Forge. Sharp. Strong. Deadly. Ready to cut through British power. Through tyranny. Through oppression. To freedom. Every sword must be forged. Every blade must be tempered. Every weapon must be tested. Valley Forge forged America. Tempered its army. Tested its resolve. The blade that emerged cut through history. Changed the world. Created new possibilities. Other revolutions failed. France. Haiti. Russia. China. So many failures. So much bloodshed. So little freedom. Why did America succeed? Many reasons. But Valley Forge matters. The willingness to suffer. The commitment to endure. The refusal to quit. That made the difference. That changed the outcome. That secured victory. Revolutionaries talk big. Everyone has grand visions. Noble goals. Lofty ideals. But talk is easy. Suffering is hard. Valley Forge separated talkers from doers. Dreamers from achievers. Believers from faithful. Those who survived Valley Forge proved their commitment. Demonstrated their dedication. Earned their victory. That's why Valley Forge matters. Why it endures. Why we remember. Not because it was worst winter. Not because most men died. Not because suffering was greatest. Because they endured. Because they survived. Because they won. Against odds. Against logic. Against reason. They won. 12,000 men entered Valley Forge. 2,000 died there. 10,000 left. Those 10,000 became legends. Heroes. Founders. They didn't know it then. They just knew survival. Just knew endurance. Just knew persistence. But history knows. We know. They were legends. They were heroes. They were founders of America. Visit Valley Forge. Stand on that sacred ground. Feel their presence. Their sacrifice. Their spirit. They're still there. In the earth. In the air. In the memory. Waiting. Watching. Asking. Are you worthy? Is America worthy? Is freedom worthy? Answer with your life. With your choices. With your commitment. That's how we honor Valley Forge. That's how we remember. That's how we ensure their sacrifice wasn't wasted. Their suffering wasn't meaningless. Their endurance wasn't forgotten. The winter that almost ended America. Instead made America stronger. Better. Unbreakable. Forever. That's Valley Forge.